Welcome back. Here's where you left off. Spoilers ahead for Season 1 of The Sojourn, an audiobook drama series. So the Sojourn Season 1 review. This is something we haven't done before. It's been a very interesting experience for us to go through to review an audio drama series. And we were really excited to do this and surprised of some of the stuff that we found about this. There were some ups and some downs, but in general, Leonard, how did you feel about the season as a whole?
For the whole season itself, I was very happy overall. Well, for me, saying happy overall is a very good thing. As you guys know, that I'm very critical about everything, about every book that we read. And especially this one, because it's the first audio dramatic series that we are reviewing. And it was interesting. It was fun to listen to. And the storyline is great. The world building is great. But there's other issues that I do want to talk about later on. But there was a lot of interesting views regarding the two species, the human and the Avaris. And you can actually see the discrepancy between both culture. And it was nice because it feels more realistic. Like, for example, if we end up going to space and we end up meeting other species out there, technology evolution is completely different for both species, and you can actually see it here. There's no equal regarding technology. It's completely separate, so it's more realistic that way, right? And I totally enjoy it. What do you think? Do you feel the same thinking here, or you're like, this is crap and let's just move on?
Well, I approached it from the perspective is when we go into these, and let's be clear with everybody that there is a lot of information that Daniel put out there online because he is the creator of Space Doc, and I'm a big fan of that. I've been around his channel for a very long time, even from when it was first started. So I had sort of higher expectations of this than a general book I would go into and read. However, having said that, his approach to this was pretty interesting, and it was as far as I know, it's his first writing credentials, and they partner with it. And also to make it into an audio drama series is also a lot more work than just writing a book and having somebody voice act it. You have to get the actors together. You have to create all of this other lore around it. And to Daniel's credit, he is strong on the universe building. That is his wheelhouse. He brings his A game with it, and it's greatly done in this drama series. The voice acting in this is phenomenal. The guy, Stephen Tafford, that played Vadrick, I was a little rough in the beginning of our episodes, and he did a great job. But Daniel released a lot of stuff about the Sojourn on its own individual YouTube channel, and there is a fandom online, and you and I did not read any of it. We came into this very open about that and doing it.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because after I read episode 12 and after we reviewed, or even just before we reviewed that episode, I ended up doing some research regarding just Sojourner, just directly from Sojourner, not even reading the fandom stuff. I'm not reading any of that. I just went to the Sojourner website. I went to IMDb. They literally have a page on IMDb in this one, and the background information outside the series helps understand the whole storyline. Here's an example. Guinevere. They literally did the lack of information in the story regarding what Guinevere is, right? I feel like there's something's missing. But if you
Well, we did get an explanation. That's fine. I was
we have
fine
the
with the
explanation.
explanation.
But here's the thing, though. If you end up going to the website and look at the Guinevere ship, now you know why it's kind of like, oh, okay, so if I use this two information, I have a better understanding what Guinevere is, right? But this is this situation is different than a regular a dramatic series, because some dramatic series out there, because while we're reviewing this, I actually ended up going into different audio dramatic series in the podcast world, and they're completely opposite. In that case, they actually use inner monologue and description regarding how to describe things. In this one, you have to go to a website to get some information regarding the background. So if you are going into this and you're just going to listen to this, it's completely different, right? Because you need to do research, right?
Daniel used his space dock background to inform his Patreon people to sort of, help raise money for the season, and so he released content as he went along for each volume, each 3 episodes, to help him develop it, fund it, and so forth. And the content that he does is always great. And after we got through those chapters, we went out and we looked at this information, and there's so much of it out there, and it's great. It's his wheelhouse. Like I said, it's really impressive how he comes up with this world building. In a lot of ways, though, I wanted to have that because it gives a depth to the series that we didn't get in the series, because we read it strictly as the series. But when you go out and you read this other content, it gives context and breadth to a lot of stuff that I at least would have liked to have some of it in the series. As an example, I made a comment in the last episode talking about how he refers to ancient battles and in the 16th, 17th century and how they do it. In one of his descriptions of one of his ships, he talks about how these ships have physical wooden mass in them as a homage to their wooden counterparts. And it's a great detail. It's a great world building. It's great, whatever. I wish he would have mentioned it in the series. Just a line, just somebody mentioning it in passing, because in his stuff, he mentions that captains on these ships usually stand by the mast holding onto a handrail to be standing versus other people on the bridge sitting down and doing their stuff, akin to a captain on the foredeck of a mast ship and so forth. So he's very deep into that lore. I just wish I would have gotten that. I felt it. I did in the series, but he really wants you to feel that. Do you understand what I mean when you look at the lore?
Yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying here, because if you're not a history buff and you just listen to this, you have that feeling. You have a feeling that you're watching Master and Commander, okay, the movie.
That's a good comparison. I like that.
Exactly.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of, Master and Commander. Yeah.
And in this series, you felt that feeling, right? You don't see it, but you feel it, right? You feel the terminology, the way they talk and all. It felt very formal, because you can actually see the difference between the admiral and the military and how they speak compared to Cassandra. Cassandra is the same thing. Cassandra is the same thing. She came from a military background, but her crew is not. So they're a little bit more relaxed in how they speak and how their tone is compared to Cassandra and the admiral and all those guys, because they have their own separate language. But when you start listening to Elizabeth and the other 2 crewmen from Guinevere, they have their own separate language as well too. And Cassandra understands that as well too. So you actually listen to her tone and how she speaks slightly different whoever she talks to, right? And that's a very nice thing to hear, because you just need to see that there's a fine line. You can actually hear it. You can hear on how they wrote it and how they interact. There's always a fine line regarding formal or informal conversation, right? And when the battle scene started, you can actually hear the difference between the Guinevere's bridge versus the Admiral's ship bridge. The Admiral's bridge is very formal, very precise compared to Guinevere. Guinevere is completely the opposite. It's like you're taking a road trip with your buddies and you're just like, hey, turn right here, right? Or hey, I need you to do this because they have your own shortcuts of speaking, right? And you can, and that was the nice thing to hear because there's some difference, right?
Well, I agree, but it was kind of, you know what it reminded me of? There's an old movie that's based off of an old video game, uh, Command and Conquer, I think it was. I think it
Yeah,
was Command
yeah,
and
Command
Conquer or
Conquer.
something like that. Anyway, it was in that they take very literally naval stuff, and they yell in there, "Give him a broadside" and stuff like that. I wonder if he like thought of that while he was writing this.
Oh, definitely,
But
definitely.
I want to go back. The audio component of this was something that is new for me to sort of review, and I found I enjoyed it, but I also had problems with it. And some of the problems I had was the choice of various sounds to represent various weapons going off because you want to like what's a missile, what's a laser, what's a rail gun, and sometimes those choices, to be fair to them, like how do you put out the sound of a light beam shooting, to be fair that is, but then again I felt like it was just this high pitched squeal, and I wonder what I would have replaced into it. I'm not an audio expert. You're sort of the better person for that analysis than me. But I found like it wasn't always lined up with the the sounds that they gave from the bridges, as you said before. It's nitpicking, I admit, but it was something that impacted my experience of the season. What did you think about
Yeah,
it?
that's actually my fault because just a little background here. I actually studied audio engineering, recording audio, and theater. And one of my assignments in
Yeah.
school was doing post production, doing Foley work for a 5 minute scene. And I ended up using Raiders of the Lost Ark as the last scene when they opened the Ark. Right, that was one of my projects during school. So when I was doing that Foley of that one, I learned to layer the sound effects. Even it's kind of funny though because the when in the Raiders of the Lost Ark when they opened the Ark when all the ghosts flying around, you know what they ended up using they used pig sounding oinking and just manipulate it in the way that actually creates that sound. So in if you do, it's part of our conversation actually even off recording that oh pardon me, when they do those kind of things in radio or audio dramatic series, you have to be a little bit more creative because if you're watching a movie, even if you do Foley work, you can physically see it, right? In the audio world, it's completely the opposite. You have to hear it, so you have to layer sounds constantly just to get that ambient noise because or the feeling of it, right? In this case, in this show, they did the same thing too. They used music to distinguish between scenes. Makes sense, right? But at the same time too, what's missing, in my personal opinion, is the if you're in a ship, you want to hear that like humming sound, that air vent, and without hearing that kind of low sound, it feels like you're detached of exactly what you're trying to convey in audio world, and that's what one of the biggest issue that I have on this one, because it feels like
It's
there's
just
something's missing.
well, with those final battle scenes, so much is going on, and you want to distinguish which ship is in the moment of firing and which ship is doing what firing piece because they have missiles, they have point defense, they have rail guns, they have various pieces there. And if you look into the lore, Daniel explicitly describes these various differences between them. Some of these ships, like and I may be wrong here. If I understood it correctly, the Admiral ship is a larger capital ship which can shoot toe to toe using rail guns, but it's not very good at point defense, and they need smaller corvettes for their point defense, right? And some of the other ships that were destroyed in the final battle were mainly more point defense, where they were defending from the missiles and so forth. But that distinction wasn't always so much there in the moment when you're listening to it, and you can become a little confused. And the only thing that brought you back to, oh, I'm on the Admiral still, or is like Larissa Thompson basically talking as Cassie, or even Stephen Tefford saying, I'm still on the platform or whatever, as Vaderick or whomever that might have been in that moment in that scene. And I'm not faulting the development of the audio side of your things, but once you and I had that conversation offline, it's all I could hear.
Yeah,
It
and
was crazy.
and on top of that too, because like I mentioned earlier, because if you're watching something video based, you can actually hear or you can actually see things. Because as you guys know, if you guys are sci-fi nerds like we do and know pseudoscience or partial science, in space you don't hear anything, right? And if you're watching video, if you're watching a movie or a show, you don't see it, you don't hear it. But in the audio world, you need to hear some type of, let's say, phasers or rail guns or missiles or torpedoes. So typically, when you say fire torpedoes, you hear the torpedoes within the ship, but outside the ship you don't. So to compensate the non-visual side of storytelling, you need to provide some type of audio feedback, audio sound effect. And this is where a creator or a director or a writer has to make a stand. Okay, we need to quote unquote show a torpedo or a missile being launched in space. So we know they don't make noise, they don't make sound in space because there's no air, because it's vacuum. So now we got to cross that line of like, okay, we'll just pretend there's air there so we can actually tell a story, right? And I have no problems with that. I have 100% agreed to that, agreed to that level of detail. No problems with that, right? But the problem I have with this is I felt like the they can do more. If they layer more, I feel like I'm part of that scene itself, right? And the other issues that I have, again, this is when I told you guys in the last episode, we'd be nitpicking, the direction of some of the artists, some of the voice actors out there. I felt like it was a very two-dimensional way of reading a script. And I felt like there's no emotions to it. Some points, don't get me wrong, some points of the whole episode, some of the episodes, I just don't feel the emotions. It feels like the direction that they got is just read this and that was it. Right? I could be
We had this discussion.
wrong about this. Yeah.
We were wondering if this was done during the pandemic and maybe, they were doing it individually in the homes or something like that. I mean, I agree to an extent. I mean, I think Jimmy Lockett, who did Redfield, did a great job. Larissa Thompson as Cassie did a great job. My favorite character, who I kind of was terrible on in the beginning of our reviews, Vaderick, who is Stephen Trafford.
Yeah, you're mean to that guy, man. You're completely mean. God,
I put him as boy toy, but really for the last 2 volumes, he kind of came out and he was like my favorite character. So
I did too. I agree with you in that one.
He was like just wait for it, and it really came out. But to be fair, I understand your point. I think though, I'm gonna go back to Daniel and say that the writing here didn't necessarily match up because these characters didn't necessarily have the dialogue or the interactions maybe to give the actors the ability to give them more poignant moments. Vaderick had poignant moments. Cassie had poignant moments. Redfield had poignant moments in it. But the secondary cast rarely had those opportunities for them to stretch themselves out that way. I mean, I gave a lot of crap in the reviews to director Elizabeth, but Emily Sherdahl's portrayal, excellent. But my objection was how Daniel wrote the character exactly, not to do with her performance.
No,
I mean,
I think
I think that the fact that she was, and I mentioned this in the review, the character he wrote had no business being the director of the whole expedition. I don't really, I can't understand his philosophy. I think it was more of a, let's have a fun-loving, easygoing person who's adventure seeking and so forth. But the way, like, Redfield is a career person. an admiral. Yeah, he's stuck up, he's whatever, but he's in charge of people. If you're in charge of people, you have to have a skill set for that. And I think the character that was written was completely not even close to being what was acceptable for that
Okay.
role. If she was just a member of the crew on the Gwen, no problem, great, fine, whatever. But as the director of 60,000 people, no, I am not buying into that
I
at all.
totally disagree 100% in that comment.
I know, we argue about this.
The
I am
reason-
not on board with this.
Okay, the reason why I totally disagree in that comment is, one, remember at the beginning, they even told us in episode 1 that this expedition was to look for supplies. They don't want a military run expedition because there's other issues there. They want a civilian to run this expedition. Fine, that's not a problem. But for you to say that Elizabeth is not the perfect person for this job, I totally disagree in that one. Remember, her job was to keep everyone in line. Her job is to make sure that the research, the fundamental objective of this expedition is to explore. Period. Not a military. Not a military.
Was
Hold on.
to manage the expedition.
That's what she
For a
did.
month.
Oh my God, Derek.
She leaves for a month and leaves 60,000 people alone for a month.
But Derek, she literally did.
I am not on board with
Okay, Derek, she literally did exactly what she did. She's doing exactly what she did. When Redrick took over, what did the rest of the people did? It's like, screw you, we're not going to listen to you. We want to talk to Elizabeth. Because Elizabeth knows how to talk to people. Knows how to talk civilian. Knows how to talk science. If you send a military person to say, I'm in charge, the first thing the scientists will do is say, screw you, buddy. I'm not going. Because it becomes a military...
I do. I take your point. And her approach with Vadrick was an excellent scene for her. Probably the best scene that she had in the whole season. Probably that scene was probably the only scene where she really had, even when they were discussing the final battle plan and she's kind of giving a little bit of direction to people. Those two scenes were the only two scenes I can think of in the entire season where she led from the front, is what I'm saying. And somebody who's in charge needs to lead from the front. You don't have to be a military person for that. But,
being a leader, it's not being a leader is to manage people with skills. SMEs.
But she didn't manage people. She left for a month.
Did. Doesn't matter. She leaves for a month. She's a person can go on vacation. It's fine. But
she's on vacation.
Push comes to shove there.
You mentioned it to Daniel for the second season. Elizabeth came back. She's back.
She's not allowed to go on vacation anymore. Period.
She's on vacation with Cassie. Yeah. Daniel, that's your plot for the second season. Elizabeth's on vacation. No problem.
But here's the thing, though. She did exactly what she's supposed to do. Lead by example. Even Redrick said at the end it's like, fine, I will follow you exactly the way you do things because I agree with you, right? But so you can literally see how she goes in the room. Everyone knows who she is. Everyone knows what she does. Everyone respected her, right? And all the people, even before Redrick showed up, everyone's listening to her and didn't question a single thing at all, right? Because she commanded that. She knows what she's doing. She knows what is the object of this mission. Redrick showed up. I was like, oh, I lost a ship. I lost a gate. Uh-oh, I have to do revenge now. Don't worry about all the stuff that we have to do. I have one track mind. Do you want to call that a leader? No. I call that he has a revenge thing that he has to do. Elizabeth showed up. I was like, you know what? This is wrong. Our mission is this. So she did it. She literally stayed in one track of this is our mission. Our mission is not to pick a fight. Our mission is to find supplies.
I will make my point I'll make my point from you from the original point that I made that she was never the adult in the room. That's
we both agreed on that one.
The only time that I saw her do that and try to be that was when they were making their final battle plan. That was when she was in the room asking people their opinions. Should we leave? Should we go? That was the only time in the entire season I saw her step up and be the adult in the room.
It's called
And
evolution
that's from
of
a
a
writing
person.
perspective.
It's
That's from a writing perspective, right? That's not from it's a character development piece. Like,
like
like what as a character, what did Elizabeth want? Right? She didn't want to, she wants to go explore and go off. What does she not want to do? Lead the people that she's on the mission with. And that's
well,
fine. You could have a character
the,
that doesn't want to do her job. Lots of people do that. That's fine. But, what does she need? She,
well, Derek,
my,
if you look at episode 1 to episode 12, there's like almost a year that they've been out there. It's been almost a year. Okay, and we're just presuming that she's going into this as a green director, as a green leader. And you said it evolved to where she is now, right? Without that learning curve, she'll be a useless leader, right? When Redrick showed up, not Redrick, sorry, the Admiral showed up, Redfield, sorry, I keep calling him Redrick, but it's when Redfield showed up and said, I'm taking over, you can see that why. Because you are going off mission now. And she understood that. She stood her ground. She got freaking put in jail in this one, right? She went, and everyone revolted. It's like, well, where's Elizabeth? Where's Elizabeth? We'll take our order from Elizabeth. You can't take over because Redfield has a narrow mind. He has an object. She diverted from the mission to go fight for something that he doesn't need to fight, also known as revenge, and they went off mission. Right, and you have to agree that Elizabeth never went off mission.
I think my feel of it from whatever is the tone of the character didn't match what was written for the character. Is my kind of
explain that. Explain that. I want to hear your explanation of this one because I'm a little confused why you said that.
Like I did. My argument was that she was not the adult in the room. There were people that would basically say, "Hey, we should be responsible and go do this thing. You should stay and take care of the people that you're responsible for." Like these scenes happened in the series.
Yeah, but we're talking about the first 3 episodes
Redfield
here.
is like, even what?
This happens like at the beginning. This is before the threat showed up. If there's a threat, I'll bet you she will never leave.
They knew about the threat very early, and then she leaves for 3 weeks. I mean, like it's just. No.
To be honest,
we are going to agree to disagree.
I have no problems. At the end of the day, I'm still right and you're wrong. Let's just leave it that way.
So let's switch for a minute. Let's talk about Daniel's great world building because he does a really great job at this, and the race of people he creates are great. And I think you and I were really fascinated by the religious aspect of the people, and the ending of the show had a number of loose ends, which I'm sure that he intended to do to create season 2. How did you feel about the way these parts ended? And specifically, I'll just give you a couple that the Empress met the demon guy. I don't know what I call him. They left through the gate, and we don't know the fate of Vadrick. What do you think of those 3 points?
Okay, so like I mentioned several episodes ago, that the way the Varys culture matches the writing. You know what I mean? It felt the way they wrote the Varys is bang on. The way it was explored, the way how the background is, the world of that species worked very, very well. I have no problems with it. It's actually, to be honest, it's one of my favorite things in this series is the Avaris, not the humans. It's the Avaris. I'm more invested in those guys rather than the other people, right? And how the series season 1, volume 1, season 1, how it ended is what I expected. Going into it, presuming it's going to be season 2, right? I'll talk about season 2 later. And the way they ended it, the way the way they ended is like, for me, it draws me more into season 2. And it left a lot of questions. Even after the battle scenes, there's questions. Questions are good because for me, having a questions ending a series with a question, it forces me to look for the answer in season 2, right? And I have no issues the way they ended it, and I loved how it ended because it draws me more in other words, it makes me want to invest my time to go to season 2, right?
I agree. I agree that there is a good way to end it. It leaves the door open to what will they do on the other side of the gate once they report in, give their information. Is Redfield still alive? Did he go down with the ship? Did they disable it or did he escape? That sort of stuff. And I think the main questions I have about the Avari, I mean, I would have personally preferred him do the cliffhanger with the Empress where they went into the star instead of going through the process of having her find the demon or whatever that might be. That might have been an interesting cliffhanger to leave it there so that they would introduce that as the next piece. I think they went just a little too far into that plot where they sort of teased the next season of it. And I understand why they did it. I just thought like the moment that the actors were, you know, she was like, "You're gonna kill us. You're flying into the star or whatever." And he's like, "Where's your faith?" I like that was a great moment of cliffhanger for those two characters, and I thought it would be a good stopping point. But it was great. I like that Vadric, since I'm invested in the character now. I want to know what happened to him. He's like, "I just want to fly off and find the Empress," and so that was a great cliffhanger. So there's a lot of leftover messaging here, a lot of um a plot that you and I will go read up on the Sojourn's YouTube channels and Facebooks and so forth, and just find out that additional information and be more breathed of the universe that they inhabit. And I think that might actually change our perspective a little bit. I know that little detail about the captain standing up and so forth. It gives you the sense of Rhetoric Redfield standing there on the bridge holding on to the wooden beam going through the ship as a symbol, right? And even in the additional lore that Daniel created, he explains even why they do that. It's a great bit of lore to put into it. Maybe he puts it in the next season. That'd be a great little piece to talk about. Maybe Redfield gets his own ship named after him or something like that. Who knows, right? But certainly season 2 is something that we're excited to see, right?
Yeah. So here's the storyline. So speaking of season 2, change the subject. Before we recorded this episode, this review, I ended up doing some little research here. Okay. So as you guys know, the release is based on volumes, right? Volume 1 is actually season 1. Volume 2 will be season 2. But in volume 1 actually has 12 episodes, like what we just finished reviewing. But here's the kicker. This is part you'll blow your mind in this one. Season 1 and 3 was released in 2020. So we recorded in 2019. Season 21, 2021, they released 4, 5, 6. 2022 is 7, 8, 9. And 2023 is season 10, 11, 12. This is where we ended. This is what we ended up reviewing. It took them 4 years to do this. Okay. 2024, around August of 2024, they released season 2, episode 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So the only way you can get this, you have to go straight to their Patreon page. And I don't mind that. To be honest with you, I have no problems with that. When people are invested in the Sojourner, they will be providing money for this series to continue. It's like no issues there, right? But if I have to wait 4 years for the series so I can actually get it from Audible and listen to it, that's a lot. That's a big investment in my end, right? It's a massive investment of time And to be honest with you, I don't have patience to wait for 4 years to listen to this whole thing. And again, the last 3 episodes was a great cliffhanger, great question and answers. It's a great it's a great way to end the season because you're going down on a high note, right? And I can't wait to listen to the rest, but I'm not gonna. But for me to wait is just gonna be very frustrating, right? And I'm glad it's continuing. I'm glad that there is there's answers on the cliffhangers that they had in the ending of season 1, volume 1, and I'll wait for 24, 25, 26, 28, 2028 to listen to the rest.
2020. It sounds so bad when you say it.
I know, but okay.
I mean, I was even thinking about the actors. Like maybe they don't act anymore. It's like no, 8 years later.
I'll bet you they already pre-record all this already. They already recorded all this, right? But I'm
not sure. I mean, the other audio dramas that we've been listening to, and it's been more recent. Generally speaking, they're releasing like once a month an episode. Maybe
once a month, like once every couple of weeks. One of them is bi-weekly.
Yeah, like, and maybe it's only 30 minutes long, sure, or whatever. But that's still a reasonable amount of time for you to still be invested in it, even though it might take you a full year to get through a season. Once a month, there are TV shows that do that kind of garbage and crap. I mean, I personally would like, it's that episodical thing every week. An audio drama series requires a lot more back end production, money, and so forth. But I'm in agreement that the length of time that they spread this out, if you are a massive fan of everything that they do and you're willing to re-listen to it and go back, because you and I review books and so forth, and we reviewed a book several months ago. We have to go back and rethink about it again because we don't remember what happened a year ago. In doing that in an effective way, you might have a sense of it, but to get the detail down, to continue on an entire year later is a little bit of a stretch for me in my mind. Maybe a month at the max, but I'm just, if you're looking to engage people in a different way, I think you need to release it more consistently. I think the way Daniel and his team did it was that they released all this other content to try to keep the interest alive during those years. They released, the space dock style videos of ships, breakdowns, and the lore and the extended lore and so forth. But that's production time that you could have spent just releasing the show, So what's the point, right? What do you think?
If they're trying to create this buzz, this world, or this community, the way they're doing it works. Would I do it? No. I will probably just release a season per year, right? Or do something, because like I mentioned before, it took 4 years to go through 12 episodes. Right? 4 years, Derek. 4 years.
I mean, people
went through the pandemic,
college education in that time. Yeah. I mean, I admit we're being a little
picky, because that's what we do, Derek. This is what we do.
But what I'm saying is that we had the opportunity to review this in a way that seemed more natural and gave more context to how an overall impression of how we felt about it. Because if we had spent the last 4 years reviewing this, I think we probably would have been at the end of it, we would have said, oh my God, we finally got through it. It wouldn't have been as enjoyable to us as we are stating right now that we found the series, because we might have even forgotten about it. I mean,
yeah, like I forgot about it, to be honest with you. I really did forget about okay, here's a great example. This is a very good example. Okay. In Netflix, they have a show called Attorney Woo. Okay. It's a Korean drama. Okay. My wife and I watch it. It's a great show. Because in Korea, you're required to do military service, Some of the cast has to do the military service, so they defer season 2 for 2 years. 2 years. So now this massive issue exactly what's going to happen next. I understand the buildup of stories. The buildup of or the anticipation of the next season, right? I have no problems with that. I'm good with that. Star Trek Strange New World did the same thing too. There was the lull of like a year and a half before they released the next season. Again, no issues. It gives you that anticipation. But if you're going to give me 3 episodes per year for the next 4 years to finish volume 1 or season 1, that's when I have a little issue with. Little issue. But if we ended up reviewing this in a yearly basis in the next 4 years, only get 3 episodes, by season 2 or volume 2, I'll be like, Derek, I'm not sure if I want to continue this. Because it's just too much.
But I would be interested. I would be interested to have Daniel on the show to sort of do an interview and discuss: was this a strategic decision? Was it a logistical decision for either money or the management of the production of the show? Maybe you couldn't get all the actors to do their bits or their recordings at the same time. I just wonder, or was it a promotional strategy? I'm just curious of what was the background discussions happening about that. If Daniel ever wanted to come on the show, we'd be happy to host him.
Yes, I agree with you, Daniel. Please reach out because I definitely want to talk to you about this. I agree with Derek. We want to go deep dive in regarding why the series is this long, and we do have questions regarding the characters and how it's evolving, and I just have questions overall that I just need you to answer. And
in the end, I would say I would recommend the Sojourn. It is a great audiobook drama. It really is. Yes, we nitpick a bit, but we really are very
that
impressed
is our job.
With both the production quality and piece about it. Is there any final thoughts you have about that?
I'm glad you changed the subject. The question, I know you liked it. You already mentioned you liked it, but how would you rate this? Rate it based on, let's just rate this in 3 categories. One, storytelling, the production, and 2 things. The storyline, the production, that includes the performance, the production part, 3 things: production, the performance, and the storytelling. How would you rate that with all those 3 categories, and what is your final rating out of 10?
I think that I'm gonna rate it. I'm gonna give it a little less than I probably would have thought of, only because I'm making it your fault. By the way, I'm gonna blame it on you. I'm gonna rate it. I'm gonna rate it an 8 out of 10, because when I started to hear the audio side of it and started to examine it, I found that it impacted my enjoyment of the episode. And it's nitpicking, admittedly, but it did impact me, and I have to consider that when I'm reading it. I think the choices that were made for the audio weren't necessarily always, for me personally, the best choice, but it didn't destroy the story or anything. I just found it. So I gotta take him a little hit on that. In regards to it. And also, as much as it's horrific for me to say, the writing of a character like Elizabeth did actually impact my enjoyment of the series, even though it's my personal view on it. It did impact it because when she's interacting with other characters in the season, it impacted how I felt about the overall story.
Okay. My rating is 7 out of 10. Reason why is this?
I'm surprised mine's higher than yours. I'm shocked.
I know, right? God, see, you're more like half full kind of guy. I'm more like half empty kind of person, especially for reviewing things.
Is this because of the audio side of it? I gotta hear.
No, it's not about that. To be honest with you, based on okay, let's start with that on the production side. The production side is actually fantastic. I'm nitpicking in a way that it's like, because I'm part of that industry, I exactly know what I'm listening to, right? So taking that aside, overall the production of it is fantastic. I love how they use echoes and reverbs, and how they muffle the sound just to get that feel of it and all that, because I have no problems with that. The production side, I have no issues with it if you're just listening to it as a normal person, Okay. Regarding the storytelling, the overall story, the concept is amazing. I love the concept, but there was a lot of things that I felt that needs more explanation. It needs more time to develop. For example, we know the Admiral's background story, or the background story. We know Chrysanda's background story. Elizabeth, no. We don't know anything about her outside the timeline that they've been presented to us. The two crew members that is part of Guinevere. Great characters. It will be nice for them to develop even more and be part of the storytelling, because right now they're just supporting. And and at the last two episodes, 10 and 12, especially 10, they showed up more, and I felt that, where were you 3-4 episodes ago? You know what I mean? There was so much potential of them to do great things in the story. Okay, Guinevere. I didn't know what the ship looks like until I saw the photo, and it's a pretty ship, but lack of description kills the story, because if I don't know about the website, I don't know. For them just talking about doesn't mean crap anything. I can literally say it's snowing. It's snowing outside. I can't see anything. Now you know exactly what I'm looking at. If I say I can't see anything, why? That's how it feels like, right? Performance. The performance is great. Great voice actors. I love how they speak. I need to talk to Daniel more regarding the direction, regarding why they're speaking that, especially for the Admiral. I feel like the Admiral feels like he's just reading script without any attenuation in their voice. I want to talk to him more about that, the direction, and how what was the direction and why they made it that way. That's what question I want to know. Okay, that's why I gave it 7 out of 10, because of those reasons alone. But would I recommend the story? Yes, I will recommend Sojourners Volume 1, but you have to go to the website and learn about the characters before you listen to it. That, in my opinion, if I tell my wife, my brother, my sister, my niece and nephew, hey, go listen to this, but first you have to do your research first before you read this, no one will do it. No one will do it. First of all, it takes too much time, right? The purpose of having audio series like this is to listen, not to do your research before you listen. That's why I gave it 7.5 out of 10. So, Derek, what do you think about my review? Do you agree? I feel like you're just like not saying anything because you feel like I'm just going to ramble around.
I am just letting you get it out of your system. I was just doing that. You make very, very good points there. And I actually agree with your points. Everything you made was a valid point there. I think that there's a lot that we could interpret. I think the most poignant point that you made, though, was the fact that people would have to go read before they go listen to the series. And I think that actually was the best point that you made. And I didn't even think of it until you said it. And I think that's because when you read the stuff online, you get that depth, that world building that he does. But I want that in the series. You want the world. Daniel, it's his wheelhouse. He's very good at it. He is phenomenal at it. But the writing in the series doesn't match that in a simple way. And maybe it's because it's an audio drama. Maybe it's a descriptive thing. I mean, when you listen to him do space dock stuff, his descriptions are great. They are very expressive, very notable. And the fact that you mentioned that the Gwen was not really described in an effective way, when you read online what the Gwen actually is and look at the picture, it clicks in your head. You're like, okay, I get it. But while you're going through the season, you just don't get it, right?
Yeah.
And so I would love to discuss with them about what that is, and maybe the fact that season 2 has started. I don't know if we will do it episode by episode. I think we would probably rather wait till they release it, because as you agree,
that's actually a good question, though.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's a very good question. You actually pointed out. If the audience and the listeners of this podcast, this amazing, beautiful podcast that we're putting together, if you guys want us to review Sojourner and how it's released, let us know in the next couple of months, because based on the schedules, the release schedule, they release something around August. If you'd let us know if you want us to review it, we might consider reviewing it per thing if you're game, because being invested in this kind of show is great because you're providing funding to a studio to provide local or provide artists to do their thing, right? And if the audience wants to review this, we'll definitely review it. But if you guys are not interested, we'll definitely review this in 2028 when it gets released. But at the same time, too, Derek, I think both of us agree that we do want to invite Daniel to reach out, or we'll reach out to you, or vice versa. Let's just talk, and we want to sit down with you for an hour and just talk to you about this project and nitpick the choices, because the potential there, I think we both agree, the potential of this story is fantastic.
What would you do if you were given a second chance? Titus Briggs is an Earth defense soldier, a grunt, a decorated war hero. It's all he's ever known. So when a career-ending injury leaves him lying in a hospital bed, missing both legs, he struggles to accept his new reality. He can no longer walk, which means he can no longer fight. This is until a mysterious colonel arrives and offers Titus the opportunity to step into a new kind of war, a new kind of fight, to become a new kind of soldier. Join us next time as we review Able-Bodied Soldier, chapters 1-5, by Jason Anspach and J.N. Cheney. Thank you for opening the book with us today. Subscribe so you won't miss our next episode. We would love to hear from you. Share a review or email us at yourbookmarksinfo@gmail.com. Join us again right here where you left off.